I am Alina Cole, 32 years old, head of brand strategy at a clean energy firm in Seattle. Six-figure income, two-bedroom apartment with a view of the water, no spouse. No kids, no chaos. At least that's what it looks like from the outside. But for 10 years, I was bleeding dry behind closed doors, and no one noticed. Because the people doing the bleeding were my own family. It didn't start with a betrayal. It started with a favor. The first year I got promoted, my younger brother Mason called me crying. Said Mom and Dad were behind on the mortgage, and the bank was threatening foreclosure. I didn't ask for details. I just wired them 12,000. That same night, it felt good to be useful, to protect the people who raised me. But favors turned into patterns, and patterns turned into expectations. My parents aren't poor. They're careless. Dad used to own a local auto shop, but sold it when his crypto side hustle started pulling in wins. Now he spends his days watching live streams about altcoins and NFTs and yelling at the news. Mom does part-time work at a boutique downtown, but mainly posts inspirational quotes online and keeps a wine subscription active. Mason. He dropped out of college his second year. He's had 6 jobs in 4 years and quit every single one, on principle. Meanwhile, I was building my life from scratch. Every scholarship I earned, every job I fought for, every dollar I saved like I was preparing for a winter that never ended. I thought doing well would make them proud. Instead, it made me their wallet. It was never, can we ask for help? It was, Alana, we need you. Alana, don't let your brother be homeless. Alana, you know what family means. They didn't ask, they assumed. Assumed I would cover the rent, buy the flights, send the money for emergency dental, or fix whatever mess Mason had made with his credit card. I justified it, told myself this was temporary, that someday they'd get back on their feet. But the only thing they ever got better at was lying. I remember one Thanksgiving. I spent nearly $3,000 flying them out, booking a rental, decorating the place, and cooking every meal. Mason posted a photo of the dinner with the caption, "Family over everything." Wouldn't trade this for the world. He didn't tag me. Didn't mention that I paid for every bite. That night, I cleaned the dishes while they drank wine and argued about football. No one said thank you. No one asked how I was doing. No one even noticed when I went to bed early, tears stinging my eyes. They didn't see me. Just the silhouette of someone who kept showing up. It was like this for years. Spring, Mason needed a new laptop. Summer, Mom's car broke down. Fall, Dad got banned from another crypto app and said it was a technical glitch. Every time they made the same promise, just until we get back on our feet. But no one ever stood up, and then came that Christmas. December 23rd, I had packed a small basket of gifts, not fancy, just scarf for Mom, a watch repair kit for Dad, a handwritten card for Mason with a $50 gift card tucked inside. I texted them, driving over soon. No need to open the door if you're busy. I'll leave the gifts on the porch. 5 minutes later, Mom replied, Dad's out looking at properties. I'm picking up meds. Mason's working late. Just leave it, thanks. But something didn't sit right. I pulled up the family location app, the one I once used when Mason forgot his keys at the bar. All 3 were at the house. I drove by. Didn't stop. Just circled the block once and watched from a distance. The lights were on. Shadows moved behind the curtains. Water leaked through the window cracks. I left the basket on the porch and drove home. That night, I sat beside my tree with a glass of wine in silence for company. No one texted. No one called. No one said thank you. I tried telling myself they were busy, that they'd call tomorrow. But the silence felt like something else. It felt like truth. Then, around 10 p.m., I got a notification. Mason Cole is going live. Curiosity outweighed caution. I tapped the screen, and the first thing I saw, their living room, glowing, spotless, transformed. A 10-foot Christmas tree covered in glass ornaments. A full charcuterie spread. Lauder echoing over a Bluetooth speaker. Mason swung the camera around. Look at this party.
Y'all best Christmas ever.
Then he whispered into the mic. Don't tell Elena. She thinks we're broke. Someone off camera laughed. A voice said, let her keep sending checks. She's the gift that keeps giving. My heart dropped into a place I didn't know existed. I didn't cry. Not right away. I just stood on the balcony, cold wind hitting my face, wine in my hand, wondering how many years have I been funding this lie. I opened my banking app. It's 3,100 sent on December 1st, 4,800 on December 12th, another 700 on December 17th. I had paid for that entire party, and wasn't even worth an invitation. I don't remember falling asleep, but I remember waking up at 1:26 a.m. sitting on the floor. Laptop open. Screenshots everywhere. Live stream clips. Old messages with guilt, threaded pleas. I was building a case, not for court, for myself, so I'd never forget again. At 7:10 a.m., I got a text from Elena. Rent's due. We need Thrall's 800 by noon. Please help like always. I stared at those words for a long time. Then I typed one sentence. Delete my number. And I hit send. The message sat there for a few minutes, unread. Delete my number. No emojis. No explanations. Just a line as sharp as the pain that had carved it. By 7:18 a.m., it showed, seen. No reply followed. And that was the first moment in years I didn't feel like someone's safety net. I felt untethered, unused, quiet. I closed my laptop, sat on the floor, let the silence wrap around me like a coat I hadn't worn since childhood. Not cold, just unfamiliar. At 80:10, I opened my financial apps, revoked access to the shared bill account I once set up for Mom, paused every recurring transfer, canceled every automatic payment labeled family, updated every password. Then I called the bank. The woman on the other end was polite. Reason for closing the joint credit card. I didn't blink. I no longer want anyone but me to have access to my peace. She didn't ask again. I spent the rest of the morning building a file. Screenshots from Mason's live stream, photos of the banquet, the lights, the tree, my dad holding a glass of whiskey, my mom laughing in a brand new sweater I didn't buy. I labeled the folder, Family Archive Do Not Reopen. Then I downloaded 12 months of bank transactions, marked every transfer to them in red. The total, 38,6020, enough to fund a year of rent in the city. Enough to travel the world twice. Enough to build a life they never even asked about. By noon, my lawyer called. Hannah had helped me years ago when Mason tried to get out of Elise by using my name. Ready to start your boundary file? She asked. I already did. I forwarded her the screenshots and statements. Her voice stayed even. If they reach out again, legally or financially, we'll be ready. Good. She paused. You okay? I didn't lie. I'm lighter in the head, heavier in the chest. That's normal, she said. Guilt lingers, especially when it's trained into you. At 12:47 p.m., Mom left a voicemail. Just her wavering, sweet, weaponized. I don't know what made you change, sweetheart. But I hope you're not planning to turn your back forever. I didn't cry. I saved the folder. Same label. I'd stopped defending myself. Now I just collected the truth. That night, I stood in my kitchen holding a tray of gingerbread cookies. The ones I had baked to bring to their house, still warm, still soft. I tossed them into the trash one by one. Not out of anger, but because some traditions don't deserve to live. The days that followed were strangely quiet. I blocked every number I needed to. Deleted Venmo. Closed out the card Mason used, just for emergencies. Removed them as beneficiaries from my insurance and retirement accounts. Called Hannah again. I want to update my will. Take them out completely. No hesitation. She asked. Known. But New Year's Eve I hadn't heard a word. No texts. No apologies. No invitations. It was the first time in a decade I wasn't bracing for a money request while trying to sip champagne. I watched the fireworks over Puget Sound from my window, alone. And for once, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt like a beginning. Then, in the first week of January, Mason messaged me. Not on my phone, on LinkedIn. If you don't send this month's money, I'm actually getting kicked out. Your call. I didn't reply. I took a screenshot. Forwarded it to Hannah. She replied within 15 minutes. If he keeps this up, we can file for financial harassment. I'll start documenting. I gave one nod to the screen and felt the last piece of the old me fall away. 3 days later, a new email arrived. Subject line, Keto, I need to talk. Sender Ronald Cole. I read it slowly. He owed over $27,000. The house might be foreclosed, no one else could help. Just this once. Swore he'd never ask again. I read it twice and replied, I can't help. But if you and Mom ever want to rebuild a relationship, I can refer you to the therapist who helped me. Only condition, no money involved. 3 days passed. No reply. I saw the read receipt, and that was enough. The next few weeks were quiet in a way I hadn't known I needed. No guilt texts, no emergencies, no crisis roles to step into. I cooked for myself, took long walks, signed up for a Saturday yoga class, started volunteering on Wednesdays at a local support group for women dealing with financial abuse. I didn't tell them my full story, but I shared enough. One woman, Haley, hugged me after class one night. You showed me that setting boundaries isn't cruel, she whispered. It's survival. This wasn't revenge. This was restoration. Of my time. My peace, myself. They always say when someone stops giving, you learn who they were really giving to. But that's not true. When I stopped giving, I learned who I had been giving away me. My time, my sleep, my promotions. Because I passed on out of town offers to stay near them. Because someone had to be the anchor. My weekends. Because every Sunday dinner was an unspoken collection plate. My voice. Because don't rock the boat was just another way to say, keep giving and stay quiet. It started with the rumors. Not to my face. Of course not. But I knew. Cousin June messaged me on Instagram. Hey, just wanted to ask. Are you really cutting off your family over one misunderstanding? I didn't reply. I just stared at the question. One misunderstanding. Right. A decade of financial and emotional manipulation, rewritten into a single vague sentence. Classic. Then came the group chat texts on the extended family thread. We missed you at Uncle Ray's birthday. Hope you're okay. Heard things have been tense. No one asked what happened. No one said, we heard Mason stole from you. No one said, your mom admitted to using you like a savings account. Just soft concern, soft judgment, wrapped in family tone. At work, things were better. I was still focused, still efficient, but quieter. I didn't go to happy hour anymore. Didn't laugh as easily. Didn't stay late just to help the new hires feel seen. I had pulled back the parts of me I used to give out like samples at a grocery store. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty. Until one Monday, I walked into the break room. My coworker Brielle looked up. Hey, weird question, she said. I turned, coffee in hand. Did your brother really get evicted? I froze. What? She held up her phone. He posted a long story on Facebook. Said you cut him off over nothing and he had to move out with his dog. I didn't say a word. I just set my mug down. Steady, calm. Then I smiled, the polite kind you use in war. Thanks for telling me. Then I walked out, straight to the conference room, and locked the door. I sat there for 20 minutes, breathing, not crying, not raging. Just sitting in the hard truth they weren't just stealing from me, they were rewriting me, framing me as cold, ungrateful, overreacting. Because if I was the villain, then they didn't have to face what they'd done. That night, I wrote a post, not for likes, just for truth. I posted a single image, the payment log, tens of thousands in red, caption, sometimes love is given freely, sometimes it's extracted through guilt. I'm learning the difference. I still love my family. I just no longer fund them. I didn't name names, didn't point fingers, didn't need to. The silence afterward was deafening. Mason didn't reply, Mom didn't call, Dad didn't defend. But I did get a message from my aunt in Oregon. It read, Elena, I saw your post. I just want to say I'm proud of you. I never had the courage to step back from our family. But I wish I had. If you ever need a weekend away, we have space. It wasn't much, but it was real. That weekend, I drove to the coast. Stayed in a quiet Airbnb with glass windows and lemon soap that smelled like something I didn't know I missed. I stood on the beach one morning, letting the water eat my footprints, and I whispered, just once, I am not who they said I was. I used to think what they took from me was money, savings, bonuses, a raise here, a tax refund there. But one quiet morning in that seaside cottage, I realized the truth. The money was just the surface wound. The deeper theft was time, confidence. The way they rewired my brain to flinch every time I said, no. I remember sitting on the edge of the guest bed with a steaming cup of tea, staring out at the ocean. And I asked myself a question I hadn't asked in years: what do I want? Not what would make Mom proud. Not what would keep Mason from spiraling. Not what would maintain the peace. What does Elena Cole want? And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel guilty for asking. The next week, I did something radical. I blocked my mother. Not forever. Just long enough to hear my own thoughts without her voice in my head. Then I deleted the shared family calendar. They could plan Christmas without me this year. At work, my manager called me in. She noticed I'd been more focused lately. She said it like it was a compliment, but also a question. I'm offering you the Boston role again, she said. It's still open. We'll cover relocation. The same offer I turned down 2 years ago because Dad needed help with the house, and Mason wasn't in a good place. This time, I said yes. No drama, no second guessing. Just a quiet yes. And a quiet suitcase 2 weeks later. Moving day came fast. I didn't tell them, didn't announce it, didn't post a thing. I packed my dishes and memories and left behind the echo of every yes I ever said against my better judgment. Boston was cold, cleaner, unfamiliar in the best way. No cousin to bump into at Trader Joe's. No family dinners hovering over my Sunday evenings like ghosts. Just me. And a new apartment with wide windows and no creaky floorboard reminding me of childhood arguments. One night, after a long day, I sat on my new couch with a pizza box in my lap. No wine, no music, just silence. And I realized something strange. I wasn't lonely. I was unburdened. That silence didn't last forever. 3 weeks in, I got an email. Subject line from Mom, please read. I hovered over it. I didn't click. Not that day. But eventually I did. Inside was one line: Mason's in trouble again. He's asking for you. There it was, the invitation to return to the pattern. I didn't reply. But I didn't delete it either. I let it sit there unopened again, like a test. Because sometimes healing isn't dramatic. Sometimes healing is learning to sit with a plea and letting it expire on its own. Later that week, I mailed a single postcard to my aunt in Oregon. It said, "Thank you for seeing me." That meant more than I can say. That was it. No return address. No follow-up. Just a whisper of gratitude sent into the world. A month later, I walked into a Boston bookstore and bought myself a journal. The kind with thick pages and a leather cover that felt like a promise. And I wrote this on the first page. I am not responsible for the people who burned me when I kept handing them matches. It didn't come as a surprise. The knock, sharp, hollow. Like someone didn't want to be there but needed to be. I opened the door of my Boston apartment and saw him. Mason, tailed. Hands in his pockets like they were holding something together. He looked smaller somehow. Like regret could shrink a man. "Alana," he said. No hello, no smile. Just my name, like it used to mean rescue. I didn't invite him in. He didn't ask. "I was in town," he said. "Needed to see you." I waited. He sighed. "Things are bad." I nodded. He waited for me to say more. I didn't. "Mom said you moved out here for a promotion." Still, I said nothing. He cleared his throat. "She's worried sick." That almost made me laugh. Because she wasn't worried when she let me carry her debt. Or when she passed along Mason's problems like family heirlooms. But I didn't say that. I just let the silence stretch until it made him uncomfortable. "I messed up," he said finally. His voice cracked. "I was in a dark place. I owed some people. I needed a way out. You found one." I said, flat. He looked up, hopeful. "I did." "Yes," I said. But it's not me. That landed hard. He blinked. Elena, I'm your brother. I crossed my arms. And I was your sister when you let them drain me dry. He looked like he might cry. But I didn't reach for him. Because I wasn't cruel. I was done. I'm clean now? He said. Good. I'm trying. I hope you keep trying. I need help. I don't provide that anymore. There was a long pause. Then he whispered it. You're different. I nodded. I had to be. He stepped back from the doorway. I didn't expect you to hate me. I don't, I said. But I no longer carry you. He stood there for a while, as if hoping I'd change my mind, that I'd break, that I'd fall back into the script we both knew by heart. But I didn't. I stood in my doorway, quiet, steady, like a door finally shut. When he left, he didn't slam the elevator button, didn't shout. He just walked away. And I let him. Later that night, I called a locksmith. I didn't need to, but I wanted to, because sometimes closure is practical. Sometimes healing looks like changing your locks, blocking old numbers, and buying a welcome mat that doesn't say, family first. The next morning, I opened my journal again, and I wrote 5 words no is a full sentence. I underlined it twice. The holidays came quietly that year. No screaming toddlers, no burned stuffing, no passive-aggressive comments about my single life. Just me, a candlelit apartment, and my own playlist humming soft jazz through the living room. I made lasagna, not for them, not even for tradition, just because I wanted to. And when I sat down to eat, I didn't miss anyone, not even a little. It came in the form of a letter, not a text, not an email. A real letter, thick paper, blue ink smudged at the corners like someone had hesitated with every sentence. I stared at the envelope on my kitchen counter for 3 days before I opened it. The return address was familiar, a quiet corner of rural Vermont. My mother's sister's place. A place I hadn't stepped foot in since the Christmas when I was 16, and learned that family traditions mostly meant Elena handles everything. The letter was from my mother, 3 pages, front and back, not dramatic, not accusatory, just raw. She didn't defend herself, didn't mention money, didn't mention Mason, didn't even ask me to come home. What she wrote instead shook something loose inside me. I don't expect you to forgive me, Elena. I don't even think I deserve that. But I need you to know, I remember every time you showed up, every late night, every check, every holiday you made happen when I was too tired, too selfish, or too afraid to say thank you. I see it now. I didn't then. That line alone made me sit down. Because I had wanted to be seen for so long, I had stopped believing it was even possible. But here it was, in writing. I've been going to therapy, she wrote. Real therapy. Not just talking to my friends over wine and calling it healing. I smiled a little. Because it sounded like her. And for the first time, I didn't resent it. I know we treated you like a backup plan. We told ourselves you didn't mind, because you never said no. But now I realize silence doesn't mean agreement. It means exhaustion. I folded the letter, not to throw it away, but because I needed to breathe. I poured a cup of tea and stood by the window, watching late December light stretch across the floor. Boston was cold, but for once, it didn't feel empty. Forgiveness isn't a door you leave unlocked. It's a door you build, from your side with your tools, and no one gets to rush you. I didn't write back right away. I let it sit. I let myself sit, not in bitterness, but in choice. Because that's what healing really is, choosing what stays and what doesn't. A week later, I sent a postcard. Not a letter, not a grand gesture. Just a simple sentence. I'm glad you're doing the work. I'm doing it too. Happy New Year. That was it. No promise of reconnection. No invitation. Just a boundary, wrapped in respect. Sometimes forgiveness isn't about rebuilding a relationship. Sometimes it's about rebuilding yourself and no longer carrying the ruins of someone else's choices. My first real holiday season alone wasn't sad. It was silent. And silence, I learned, isn't the same as loneliness. I lit a cinnamon candle, played jazz records, cooked enough food for two, even though I only set one plate, not because I hoped someone would show up, but because I was finally showing up for myself. Then, just after New Year's, the silence shattered. I was walking home from a bookstore. It was snowing lightly. My phone buzzed in my coat pocket. Unknown number. I shouldn't have answered, but I did. Elena, my father's voice, raspy. Hesitant, I froze in the middle of the sidewalk. He hadn't spoken to me in nearly a year. I shouldn't be calling, he said, then paused. But your mother's in the hospital. My stomach dropped. Not because I was ready to run to her bedside. I wasn't. But because grief isn't binary. It doesn't wait until you've made peace with the people who broke you. What happened? I asked. Heart, they said. Stress. Maybe grief. I don't know. His voice cracked, and for the first time, it didn't feel like manipulation. It felt like regret, pure and raw. She keeps saying your name, he whispered. I closed my eyes, and for one sharp second, I was a little girl again, standing by the stove, trying to get the pie just right so Mom would smile for real. I flew out the next morning. Not for them. For me. Because sometimes showing up doesn't mean surrender. It means reclaiming the ground where you once lost yourself. When I arrived at the hospital, my father was slumped in a chair, gray around the temples, his hands fidgeting with a styrofoam cup like it held all his penance. He stood when he saw me, but I didn't hug him, just nodded. She looked smaller in that bed, tubes, wires, beeping monitors, but her eyes were open, and when they met mine, she smiled. Elena, she breathed. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I didn't think you'd come. I almost didn't. I said honestly. She nodded. That would have been fair. I sat by her side, quiet. Still, we didn't talk about money, or betrayal, or lasagna dishes shattered in trash bins. We just sat, and for a moment I felt something shift, not forgiveness, but understanding. Later that night, after she fell asleep, I walked out to the hallway. My father followed. She's trying, you know. So am I said. He looked down. I don't know how to fix this. You don't. I turned to face him fully. Because this isn't something you fix. It's something you own. He blinked, and I realized that might have been the first time I had ever truly spoken to him. Not as a daughter begging to be loved, but as a woman who now understood her worth. You know what the worst part is? I asked. It wasn't just the money. It was knowing you thought I didn't deserve a choice. He didn't argue, didn't explain. He just whispered, we were wrong. And for the first time in my life, I believed him. I stayed 2 more days, not because I trusted them again, but because I needed to look at them, really look, and knowed, whatever came next I wouldn't be caught off guard again. Mom was quieter than I remembered. She reached for my hand often, told stories from when I was little, but none of the stories were about who I'd become. That was the first red flag. She kept trying to pull me back into the version of me that was soft, small, giving. The version they could mold. On the 3rd morning, as I poured coffee in the hospital kitchen, I heard my father's voice down the hall. He was talking on the phone. I think she'll come around. She's here, right? That's a start. Silence. Then, I'll ask about the house after she signs the insurance forms. Timing's everything. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. The cup in my hand trembled. They hadn't changed. They'd just changed tactics. Later that afternoon, Mom asked me gently if I could help with a few financial documents. Just signatures, she said. Routine insurance stuff. Nothing major. I looked her in the eyes. You know I work in corporate fraud, right? Her cheeks flushed. Elena, it's not like that. I heard Dad on the phone this morning. Her expression faltered, then hardened. You weren't supposed to hear that. And I wasn't supposed to exist outside your plans. I snapped. For a moment, the silence between us was deafening. Then she said something I'll never forget. We were desperate. No, I said. You were entitled. I stood up, took my bag, walked toward the door. Elena, wait, please. I turned one last time. You're not dying, you're just uncomfortable. And for once, I'm okay with that. Back at the airport, I sat by the window, watching planes rise into cold winter skies. My phone buzzed. A text from my brother. You think you're better than us now. I stared at it, deleted it, blocked the number. He was wrong. I didn't think I was better. I just finally realized I was free. The night I got home from the hospital visit, London felt colder than I remembered. But it wasn't the weather. It was something deeper. The clarity that comes when hope finally dies. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just sat at my tiny kitchen table, lit a candle, and opened my laptop. Then I began to write. Not an email. Not a text. Not even a legal complaint. Just a letter to them. A letter I never intended to send. Dear Mom and Dad, I don't know what you'll remember about me after this. Maybe the lasagnas. Maybe the bills I paid. Maybe the holidays I never missed. But I hope someday you remember this: I loved you. I really did. I loved you enough to excuse the guilt trips. Enough to justify the double standards. Enough to believe that if I just gave a little more, you'd finally see me. But love shouldn't come with a receipt. And I'm not a return policy. You raised me to believe family meant sacrifice. What you didn't say was that only some of us were expected to sacrifice. I spent a decade trying to be enough. Enough daughter, enough provider, enough fixer. Until I realized the bar always moved. Every favor was a down payment on another request. Every no was betrayal. Every yes was expected. You didn't break me. But you bent me so far I forgot what I looked like standing upright. Now I remember. And I'm done. Not because I hate you, but because I finally love me too. When I finished writing, I didn't sign it. I just stared at the screen until my tea went cold. Then I printed the letter, folded it neatly, and placed it in a drawer I never opened again. A week later, I had it notarized and placed in my estate documents, in case they ever tried to rewrite the past. Then I did something they never saw coming. I bought a cottage. Not in London, in the countryside, a few hours away. Quiet, green, small enough to clean in one afternoon. Mine, no spare bedroom, no guest list, no open door policy. Just mine. I planted tulips outside, hung a wind chime, and for the first time, I stopped checking my phone when it buzzed. Because nobody on the other end owned me anymore. I used to think revenge meant getting even. Catching them in a lie. Watching them lose everything they made me give. Delivering some perfect blow that would finally make them say, "We were wrong about you." But then I realized something. When people use you, they don't hate you. They depend on you. They see your goodness not as something to respect, but something to harvest. And nothing scares them more than when the harvest stops. So no, I didn't send the letter. I didn't file a lawsuit. I didn't post the screenshots or shame them on social media. I just chose silence. I chose distance. I chose to be someone they could no longer reach. And that, more than anything, was my revenge. These days my life is quiet. Not lonely, just mine. I wake up when I want, work because I love to, not because I'm covering someone else's crisis. I spend my Sundays reading by the fire, baking for no one, and learning how it feels to be valued without being needed. It's peaceful in a way they'll never understand, and maybe that's the point. Some nights, I still think about the old me. The girl who showed up every holiday. The woman who answered every call, transferred every dollar, swallowed every guilt trip. She wasn't weak, she was hopeful. She believed love would eventually feel safe. I don't blame her anymore. But I did bury her, because to become this version of me, the free one, the calm one, the whole one, I had to let her go. And to anyone out there listening, who's sitting in their car outside a family dinner, wondering if showing up makes you good, or if saying no makes you selfish, let me say this: you don't owe anyone your peace just because they share your blood. Family isn't who you give the most to. Family is who protects your heart in return. If they don't see your worth when you stop paying for it, they never saw you in the first place. I'm Alina Cole. I was the reliable one. Now I'm just free. Sometimes the hardest thing you'll ever do is nothing at all. No screaming, no begging, no explaining. Just leaving the door closed and walking away with your peace intact. Because healing isn't loud, it's quiet. It's choosing you, even when no one else ever did. If this story felt like yours, if you've ever been the one who always gave, always showed up, always got left behind, then I hope today you felt seen. You're not alone. You're not wrong. And you're not selfish for saying, "This time, I choose me." If you connected with this story, please hit the like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Telling Story with Me for more real, raw, and unforgettable stories like this one. And remember, sometimes the softest goodbye is the loudest freedom.